Yeah, last week we had a very beautiful conversation about how to choose leaders. And this is something that is relevant to everybody, everywhere in the globe, every corner of the world. And we were taken through by Carl Mueller from Canada, who's been teaching about leadership. And he pointed a number of things. And because this is a subject matter that is very important, and more so right now to Kenyans who are undertaking an electoral process tomorrow, we felt that it's good to have a follow-up conversation in order to answer the various questions that keep arising. And all of us are part of this, wherever we are. We know that each one of us have experienced a number of elections previously. So there are questions I've come across, and people keep asking. Those are the ones that today we need to discuss as a people, as leaders, because largely this is about leadership and personal development. And one of the questions that we want to ask today is, I remember the topic was choices have consequences. There are those people who choose not to vote and those who choose to vote. So the question, first of all, is to vote or not to vote. Yes, what is prudent for a leader? Somebody who counts himself or herself a leader, who takes responsibility. What is prudent? What action should someone take and why? So I think that is a very good point to start. I've met enough people who say, no, it doesn't make a difference. I don't need to. And others also who feel strongly that everyone needs to. So the question is, what is prudent for a leader? What should we do? Anybody would like to take up Mike the first? Yes. Aloysius, what would you say about that? I hope you've connected your audio already.
No, I will supplement because now I'm just joined.
Yeah.
I will supplement.
Good. Welcome, Josephine. Welcome, Dr. Eda. To vote or not to vote?
Hello?
Hello.
Yeah, I think voting is compulsory and not voting is a sin.
Compulsory and sin. Those are two very, very strong words, because there are enough people. I have an uncle who's never voted, and he says it doesn't matter. Well, not that it doesn't matter. He says, I love all of them. As a Christian, I'm commanded to love all people. So I love all of them. So I don't need to prefer one.
That is an excuse because our forefathers fought for this, and with the blood, sweat, and tears. And so we need to vote. There are three types of candidates. One of them is the candidate we want.
Yeah.
Number two is the candidate we deserve.
Yeah.
And number three is the candidate after God's heart. And you only get the candidate after God's heart when you've humbled yourself in prayer.
Yeah.
En masse, because the person we want very often is the person from our ethnic group, the one who has a nice, what we call nice personality, charming or whatever it is, but the personality can be deceptive. What we need is somebody of character who is after God's heart.
Thank you.
Yeah, because it's in the same way that that happened in the book of Samuel, when the leaders demanded for a king, and they got a king that they deserved, who was a disaster. So we don't want somebody that we deserve because of our misbehavior. And even the David, who was after God's heart, was not initially presented by Jesse, but because all the indications of the Holy Spirit were, no, these sons, there's one who's missing, and I want to see the one who's missing. And when David was brought, he was the anointed one. So we need to humble ourselves in prayer so that we get a person of character. Not a perfect person, obviously, there's no one perfect, but somebody who's after God's heart.
Thank you. Yeah. You've brought in another aspect which was part of the question along the way. Yeah, Catherine is saying ideally all eligible people must register and vote, ideally. And the word must is what has not been very applicable. More so for younger people, the youth, the 20s, most of them don't feel like it's a necessary thing. Even when the candidates are lacking, look for at least the most important values like life integrity, yes, not to vote is a sin. So you see, the question that usually arises is, as leaders, we should make a decision, and failing to make a decision is a decision. Yes, Aloysius.
I'm really grateful for this topic, and it is a timely topic, especially for Kenya, our beloved country. The issue here is always like people always say leadership is chosen by God, but now people here misquote leadership with being a politician. You know, leadership is not, it does not matter really mean for being a politician.
You're getting lost.
Or if there is somebody fighting to help others, leadership is just being at the forefront to be a politician. Because the politician in Africa or in the whole world now, it is like when I was in Kenya last time, they used to say politics is about the number. So the way you get the number, whether you rig, whether you change it from the computer, is they just say it's about the number. So when we are talking about leadership, does not literally.
Yeah, we've been losing a bit of what you're saying, but
of politics does not reason much reasoning. For example, Paul Peter, if your brother is standing to be the president, even if you see he's not capable, you will be forced to vote for him. But in real sense, you see he's not capable. If your tribe mate is standing, like much of the times.
Good. We keep losing you, but I'm following your line of thought.
Hello? You can't get me?
We keep losing you. You keep breaking, but I'm following. I'm able to follow your line of thought.
Okay, my network.
Yeah, your network.
So what I was trying to say here is, okay, can you get me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, what I was saying, like politics is most of the time is irrational. We support people who will favor us. We support people from our tribes. We support people from our families. We support people probably from our region. Not because they are capable, but we just use the rational way of thinking. Like, these are the people who will help us. These are the people who are close to us. But when we talk about the leadership we don't, my emphasis was, we don't literally mean politics, like these political party, political positions. You can be a leader even when you are not a politician. For example, you, Paul Peter, you are not a politician, but you are our leader here. So if you say leadership is chosen by God, that means you are chosen to help some of us because we have gained a lot from you.
Thank you. Thank you. You know, we are bringing in that very thing that most people have been looking for. And this is something that I've always had. This is something that I've always had trouble with. And a lot of people have seen me as somebody who is not very, who is not a very good person. Because as I can tell you right now, in Kenya, if you look at this country of Kenya across, you'll realize that there are counties that are very developed, more developed. People can go to the hospital and get treated and go back without paying, without missing drugs, without having to, if there is need for an ambulance, they do not have to have the cash to pay for it. But then there are counties where you will not see doctors. They are on strike perpetually, or nurses are on strike, and there are no drugs. You need to pay for whatever and everything else. So you realize that this is same country, but different leadership. You see, and even in those places where somebody chose their own relative, you realize that if they are suffering, everyone suffers. What we need to know is that the leader that is chosen by whichever process, by the end of the day, determines the life that we are going to live. You see, and if we choose based on where proximity from my home, perhaps the best that can happen is if they have some small road that is redone around that area. But most times, there is nothing much. You see, everyone suffers the same. And I've always said that most of the leaders, the political leaders that people choose, they will not use your hospital. So whether there is drug there or not, they will not know. They will not even care. Because whenever they are ill, they fly abroad. They will not use your roads because they fly up using choppers. You see, most times, I was discussing this again yesterday in my family, that sometimes the only time you see them, like right now, is when there is a funeral and they come to contribute maybe 5,000 Kenya shillings or something like that. You see, so if we choose leadership based on my relative, we've all been victims to this, and maybe some of you will be able to share stories. Like in my county of Homa Bay, we are the closest. We are bordering the largest freshwater lake in Africa, and you'll wonder why people can still lack water within that proximity, and people suffer for lack of water. The same water that other people are using in other countries like Egypt, and they are developing better than Kenya, better than Africa, better than not just Africa, better than our county. If you check our nation of Kenya, for example, and you compare to Israel, you have everything. If you gave the Israeli government a choice between their country and our country, they will leave for us everything in their country so that they come to this country. But the question is, and they are just about 70 years old in existence, the question is, what makes Israel to be a developed country and Africa still being referred as a third world? You look at Dubai or Abu Dhabi or whatever, the Middle East, it's grown just the last 50 years and it's marvelous. What is it that makes the difference? So if we are going to choose our leaders everywhere based on their proximity to us, based on how close we are with them in terms of blood relationship or clan, then we are missing the point. And all of us suffer by the end of the day. You may have helped to put somebody into that position, but all of us suffer. I was giving an example of my county where, to start with, the governor, the incumbent right now, sitting governor, is a member of my church, apparently. And not just that, he comes from my own region, my parish, my constituency, my division, and all that. But the question is, when people are suffering, when there are no drugs in the hospital, when lots of troubles are happening, people are on strike in various places, when there is no water, does it select that now to us, because we come from close, our hospitals are better? No. Last general election or previous general elections that we've undertaken in the country, when the cost of living goes high, does it select where you come from? That if you are coming from the village of the president, then your cost of living is lower. If you're coming from a different region, then your cost of living is higher. It doesn't. And this is a myth that we ourselves as leaders, in whichever the group you belong to, yeah, when you are making your choices for the leader for that particular group, what is it that informs your decision? Is it just because they come from your region? Is it just because they speak the same language without checking on their character and competence? Those are two fundamental things, two fundamental gauges to check. You see, so in that case, the question was, and that is what the three speakers have contributed to. That is Catherine, Dr. Eda, and Aloysius. Should we or should we not? And I think the answer is, you always vote by either going to cast your ballot or not casting your ballot. You've always voted. And by not casting your ballot, you are helping to vote the persons that will either contribute positively or negatively to you. In Uganda, politics has been militarized and monetarized. Voting and not voting is almost the same because I seem to be having an internet problem. But Aloysius, that is the problem we are trying to address. So do we give up because voting and not voting doesn't make a difference? Yes, Odhiambo, should we or should we not?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Who is a good leader?
Mm.
I can see you. I know you are staring at one. It says that I'm not on the ballot. Maybe 2027 I'll be on the ballot.
Yeah.
With a light touch.
Mm.
Who is a leader and who is a good leader? I think that is a very, very heavy question. I just spoke to a friend of mine in the US, former colleague of mine at the Nation, who reminded me that outgoing governor, well, it was as a politician, and get 100% votes. Yeah, the only place where you can get 100% is when you're dead and at your funeral. That one you get 100%. And those will come who know you to cry to mourn the loss of this friend, leader, whatever. And that those who will come, even your enemies will come there to confirm that you're no more. you get 100% turnout. But in politics, forget about it. Anyway, as far as a good leader is concerned, now we'll be making a choice. A good leader is one who must have a track record. People must know where have you come from. You don't just spring from nowhere and then you come here and you want to paratroop and be elected. I think that we've had that problem in the past with some leaders who they even vie for in a constituency, and the first time when the first time they get arriving there is when they want to be elected. So you need to have a track record of your own in terms of leadership. That's where even primary school, high school, college, and other places is important. Number one. Number two, it's also good to have a leader must have networks, because you see, you want to help people, but you're not going to help people on your own. You must have some networks, and hopefully good, positive, not negative ones, where you have cartels and all that. And then I think the other one is a leader must be somebody who can give you who inspires people to a better world, a better life. And then I think finally a good a leader is one who we always say, like somebody, a previous speaker said that there's that statement. I don't know whether it's a myth or it's just a statement that leaders are appointed or are anointed by God. Yes, God is going to anoint. But before we do that, before he anoints the ones we have chosen, he has already chosen. He knows who is going to be the one. So to make ourselves feel happy, you say, oh, this one has been anointed. But you see, in the book of Ecclesiastes, I'm not preaching, but the book of Ecclesiastes, we are told about seasons. There's a season for everything. That's why you have bad leaders will come, like in a Idi Amin. Are you going to say he was not anointed? Maybe God decided that Uganda needed him at that particular time to do something bad. Then we have the likes of Kina Mandela, who will come only for 5 years. They'll do what they have to do. Then they go away. There's the likes of Gorbachev in the former USSR. He came within no time, he dismantled that place, and very few people even remember him. And then, of course, we have my brother, Barack Obama. Yeah. So as leaders, I mean, as we look at leaders, you should know that there are so many different shades of them. We play a role in that. We must also be part of that system. By boycotting elections, for example, those who are saying that things have gone so bad, you're not helping anything, you're just making matters worse. It's important as Kenyans, as voters, to play our constitutional right and our civic duty, and that is to vote. Either way, we just have to vote. We must be part of the solution, not part of the problem, because every one of us is a leader in our own respective ways. Thank you very much. Sorry for taking so long.
Yeah, thank you. You brought in very interesting aspects like networks and all that. Very beautiful. Part of what I learned is, and what we all know, we've talked about, is we need to check on character. The question is, how do you know somebody's character? And how do you get to know this track record? Let's contribute to that. How do you get to know that this is somebody of character, and how do you get to know about their track record? You know, because previously, or most times, people have checked, and I wrote this in my book, The Making of a Symphony Orchestra, Timeless Leadership. And I was relating to how I saw it in the society and even in the university. In the university, we used to choose leaders based on their eloquence. Somebody speaks so nicely, yes, and entertaining as they speak. And I still see that to date in politics. Speaking, people are just laughing, people are feeling entertained. tickled around, and then they feel like this is the right person. You see, and that alone does not make leadership. Just because somebody is able to speak nicely and influence us or tickle us, then there is the fallacy. I call them the fallacies of leadership. There is the fallacy of schooling, that if somebody is more schooled, then that is probably the best leader. Is that true? Yeah. There is also the lineage which we've talked about, or clanism that we've talked about. Yeah. There is the physique, by the way. I remember also back in the university, we would some leaders would be chosen based on how beautiful or handsome they were. Yeah, you realize that ladies are going to vote some gentleman because he really looks handsome. Yeah. And men are going to vote some lady because she looks beautiful. You see. So all those parameters people have always checked. The question is, how do we get to know that this is the person of character that we are looking for? This has a good track record that we are looking for. How do we get that? And I think that is a good point to flesh out. Yes, somebody, Melvin, it would be good to hear your thought on this. This character question, track record question, how do we get to know? So without being partial or otherwise, staying objective as leaders.
Yeah, Otieno OPP.
Yes.
What I'd like to say is that, you know, your character, we judge your character by your action.
Mm-hmm.
Right? One of the candidates for governor was a Sunday school student in my church.
Mm.
But what he has done outside there speaks louder than his history in our church. You get me?
Yes.
And yet another aspirant for MCA in Kilimani Ward is also a Sunday school student from our church. Okay? And what she's been able to communicate out there and her passion for the job also speaks louder than her history in our church. So we as voters, we need to judge these people, their history, their background, and so on. And you see, the other day I was walking around and one of the candidates for MCA in my area threw a t-shirt of his to me. He's actually the incumbent MCA for High Ridge, Parklands High Ridge. And I'm not very happy with what he did when he was in office, because he was he was organizing for people's land to be repossessed. Okay. And yet this is the caliber of guy who's standing for this office. So we on the ground, we should be able to sieve the characters of the people who are standing against us, because many of us have experienced them personally. That's my take.
Thank you. Thank you. I love the angle you've brought in, that enough of them will come to church, not because they want to pray, or, well, they could also be prayerful, but also because that is part of the constituency of the people they are looking forward to get their votes. And as you said, Sunday school, and all this. And I think part of what most of us always forget is we should be students of history. I've always talked about this in different fora. If we forget history, then we will continue to make very same mistakes. We should all be students of history. Otherwise, there is no story you can tell, even to your children or to people coming after you. How did it go? And that's why enough people keep asking, love the question of where did the rain start beating us? You see, if at all we are in the rain. So we should be students of history. If we want to learn somebody's character, we should be students of history. I've seen, like, I think it's Odhiambo Lale who said that it is when a leader dies, for example, that is when other people are coming to heap praises, and not talking about anything wrong that they did or what problems they caused us. It's because most of us are always tuned to forget history. And that's why we will be promised something today by politicians, but we do not hold them accountable. Because next time, 5 years from now, we've forgotten what they said. They've come up with something new. So we cannot trace. If somebody cannot keep his word or her word, then that is not somebody we want to rely on. Again, if we can see that somebody's values are inconsistent, you can always see this. I was taught in literature that how to know people is what they say, like Dr. Melvin has told us, what they do, and what people say about them. Those are three different things. What is it that they say? They've been saying this, and what they do. Are they consistent? Not saying this and doing this, not saying that and doing the other. Yeah. If they said, for example, that we are going to do the following, is there any report about that? What is the report card? And it's usually easy for people who've been in leadership to evaluate them. And most times it's not common for somebody who's been nowhere to just appear. If they just appear, you can always dig into their history. Where are they coming from? What have they been up to throughout their lives? What is it that they've done in their personal life and their public life? Public life does not necessarily mean that they were in public offices, but in whatever role, maybe in that Sunday school, in that particular school where they were maybe part of the committee, part of the board, in that particular estate where they were part of running that particular system, in maybe a particular committee elsewhere. So everyone has some bit of track record, and that's why in hiring people, even in the job market, they even go back to your schooling. Even in your schooling, what roles did you play? Maybe you were a prefect, maybe you were a captain, whatever. What is it that can help us to understand you? But you see, many times we do not want to go into the track record. We do not want to go into the consistency or inconsistency of what somebody told us. Why? Because I realized most of the citizens in our countries, we forget so fast. We forget. Like right now, many Kenyans, I realize, have forgotten why people were looking for a new constitution. You see, I find it very amazing that people fought for constitutional review for decades, only to forget about why were we looking for this change in the first place? What were the troubles? The other day I was explaining to somebody that, you see, why do we nowadays in Kenya have swearing in coming weeks later or a month later, not immediately after the declaration of results? And this one came into being because in about 15 years ago now, there was swearing in which happened immediately after the results were declared, yeah, to bar any other contestation. So there are always reasons. Why do we have deputy president or picked as a running mate from the beginning? Because it was being dangled that you vote me, I'm going to put somebody from your region to become the deputy, the vice president then. You vote me, I'm going to do this. You vote me. So everything that was put there had a reason. But most of us forget, and even forget people who are at the forefront in fighting for this, and people who even oppose and all these. And that's why when we are brought a different narrative, we are quick to pick them based on eloquence, based on maybe relationship, lineage, whether we schooled with somebody, whether he physically looks fitter or maybe more beautiful, handsome, and all such things. But we forget the most important fundamentals. What is the character? What is the competence level? What can we say about them from their track record? What history do they have? And something like that. So that is a very important element. And I think the other thing that we need to check is, what does it matter? Yeah, Catherine has said here, people are addressing that beauty issue by saying, uza sera, sio sura. Because slogans like, hii mali safi ni kitu, whatever. I'm not very good in reading Swahili. Kitu ya kunyima kura, which is so sad. Beautiful or should not count, or not should not count. Yeah, that should not count. We should not be checking on how beautiful somebody dresses or somebody looks and something like that. The question again is, and we've answered part of it. Why should we care, or does it matter whether there is a good leader or a bad leader? Yeah, as long as we have a leader. Any contribution on the subject matter?
Hello.
Yes,
hello, hello, OPP.
Yes.
Hello. Yeah.
Yes.
What we are on now, you know, from the beginning, yes, I'm speaking. From the beginning, I felt that if we involve a lot of reasoning here in politics, we get a lot of stress. It's like now, for example, the sports. You find you support Manchester United, but you feel like Man City it plays very well. You feel like the best team is Man City, but for you are still stuck on your Manchester or Arsenal. But you feel like the other team is better. It is also the same thing in politics. For example, you find you support somebody, but in your sense, you feel like their ideas, their ideologies are not good, but you still have somebody you support. That's why you see many people here will not speak. Why? All of us here in this group, we are already occupied. We already have somebody we are going to support. Even if you do what, I'm sure, Paul Peter, you already have somebody in your head on the presidency seat that you are going to vote for. Whether the other one comes with ideologies, whether the other one comes with what, you feel like, yes, this man has ideas. This man has good history. But you already have somebody you are going to support. But already you have it in your knowledge, you have it in your reasoning that this person has ideas. Another thing, we also let us not forget, if we depend on history, that means we are going to forget about the story of the lost sheep. And we are also going to forget about Peter, the Peter from the Bible. You see, that man denied Jesus 3 times. I don't know the man, but he's the same person who was given the keys for the church. What am I going to say? History may not determine the current future. History may not determine the current, because somebody could be a person, a bad person, but with time they change and come back. Thank you.
I love your angle. Beautiful. Now, one, I need to declare that first and foremost, I have a problem with sports. Because every time I'm watching football or any other match, and largely football, I realize that the best team doesn't win. And I keep wondering, they have the best ball possession, they have very good match, they are play, and they don't. So I find it very unfair. So most times I go to the to watch to support the best team, apparently. Number two, throughout history, I never vote people because of all these things that I'm talking about, and that's why I'm very passionate about it. I don't vote people because they speak my tongue, because they come from my location or my whatever. I don't vote them because we schooled with them or they are my friends or something like that. And even in my ward right now, there are lots of people vying. And enough of them are known to me, enough of them even count themselves as my friends. But that does not inform whether I'm going to vote them or not. You see, because by the end of the day, to me, and this is something I can swear before God, I don't vote because if somebody I have questionable character, my conscience will always disturb me, because then I'm part of the problem. Last couple of years, because of the same things I'm talking about, a hostel, for example, that there are no drugs. When people are suffering in my village, I also bear the burden, whether I'm in Nairobi or elsewhere, because by the end of the day, they call me. You see, so and so has gone through this. We need this. We need this. We need to take this person to the hospital. We need, and by the end of the day, you realize that what ought to have happened is not happening. So to me, that is the most senseless thing to do. I may vote and my vote doesn't count at all, because in this case, because maybe the preferred candidate did not make it. But that does not make me say that, okay, it doesn't matter, let me just vote so and so, because it doesn't matter. I tell you, by the end of the day, you will suffer the consequences of your choice or the majority choice if that was a wrong choice. Yeah, and I know there are enough of us who probably also reason the same. And that brings me to the other thing, that what causes conflict? That is the other question that we can answer, and then I know we will be time bad. What causes conflicts in elections or in choosing leadership? Why is it that we invest emotions? Yes. What is it that causes us to have trouble with any other person with a view? Liz, are you trying to say something? Okay, not really. Yeah. Why is it that we have conflict, that we have tension? What is it that causes it? If we are genuine people, we do good debates. You know, to me, I would prefer that even in our higher institutions of learning, people sit and debate principles about just the way people sit to evaluate. And this is why sometimes I don't like democracy. Yeah, people can sit and evaluate candidate by candidate, their track record, their history, whatever they've done, and things like that. And now talking about history, Aloysius, there is something I've often discussed with people in marriage preparation. If you marry somebody who has a bad character, expecting them to change simply because Saul also changed to Paul, that is the dumbest thing you can do, because there is no guarantee. At least we can talk about history, what we've known about somebody, but we cannot chance in leadership that let's just vote this person in. He might be bad, but he also has a chance before God. I think that we cannot do. Yeah, I was taught not long ago that ladies get into a relationship with a man hoping they will change, and then they don't change. And men get into a relationship with a lady hoping they won't change, and then they change. You get that? So we cannot elect leaders hoping that they are going to change, because let me tell you, the toughest thing to change is character. It's a deliberate process. It's a deliberate, unless somebody is struck by some lightning like Paul. Yeah, Peter did not change. Peter was doing what was humanly in his hand, just trying to save his skin. But that let us know the type of person he is, and that he still needed strength. And even Jesus himself knew and told him, I've prayed for you. I've prayed for you. Satan has demanded your soul, but I've prayed for you. You see? So amongst those people, he had certain qualities that caused Jesus to pick him above the rest. And that is what we need to, we are not perfect. And as Dr. Eda said, we cannot get a perfect candidate that fits all the bills, but we must check what is it that, who was the best out of all the presented. And that's why even in interviews for jobs, we check, this one obtained A, and this one also obtained A, and this one also obtained A, but this one also had leadership credentials. He's done the following. Yeah, this one hasn't. This one was also involved in sport. This one was just an academic worm. You see, so we cannot base our arguments on the potential of change. Well, we cannot rule out the possibility of change, but not in leadership. We do not want to just do such things. I don't think that is the best thing to do. Yes, Dr. Eda.
Yeah, the thing I like that was really mentioned that I should have mentioned was the fact that we should look at the track records. Because there are three things that you need to take into account to analyze any situation, more so political. One is the history, and two is the geography, and three is human nature. And so you find that there are people who are gifted at identifying our needs. For example, our emotional needs. There's a candidate who is appealing to women, he's appealing to youth, and he's appealing to poor people like squatters. But the track history has shown that every promise he has made to these three groups has never come through. He has never kept any of his promises, which is a sign of character defect. You know, promising to have women in power, and then you know, it doesn't happen. Promising the youth that they'll have Wi-Fi, free Wi-Fi, that they will have free phone calls. There's no country in the world that has free phone calls. You go to a certain area and you say the government will buy 1 million acres of land, and yet there's only 400,000 acres of land in that place that he's talking about. So somebody who is a compulsive liar, you know, and even the policy that he's talking about is not going to work economically. It has been analyzed, and he has a history of be having a very short temper, which is very, very dangerous in politics. The incumbent president has been insulted many times, but that's one thing I can say about him. He's not perfect, but he hasn't.
You may not need to mention much about a candidate necessarily, but just giving
so what I'm saying is personal integrity. You know, like if you have court cases and you've actually been convicted and you had to pay people because you actually stole, somebody's land. I don't see how you can go ahead to say this person has integrity, because the court cases are all there. And like you said, imagining that somebody will change is an impossibility, because there's three things that you can give a person that the true character will come out. One of them is power, unlimited power. Number two is unlimited access to resources. And obviously the two of them will result in unlimited access to pleasure from the opposite sex. Once you give somebody access to those three things, that true character comes out. So it's very, very dangerous. If you refuse to look at the track record.
Thank you. Thank you. I remember one of the points brought out last week was, if you see a candidate that is swaying electors with goodies or money, then you know there is a flawed character. Yeah, whether it's church, whether it's where corporate politics. If I've got to come to you and tell you and give you something to persuade you to vote for me, then there is something wrong with me. And I've always said this to people during elections, that if you take somebody's money in order to vote them, then they've already paid you. You don't expect any service. By the end of the day, they have to, they know they've paid you, they've dealt with you, they are done with you. They can now concentrate on recouping their investment, so to speak. So they are going to put their money back, and they will not give any service. Another thing that you've brought in and we've talked about is it's also the way we invest also our emotions. I think there should be more reasonableness. Aloysius is also saying there. Instead of investing your emotions, which means you run out of logic, then it means you have emotional weakness. You need some emotional strength. And if people can debate and get to flesh these things out, evaluating a candidate after candidate, candidate after candidate in a political forum, not a forum like this, or in your own baraza, in your own families, in your own committees, and then you are able to make rational choices, as opposed to, oh, if we vote so and so, then you know he's next to so and so, we can reach him and then he will be able to do for us this. We should be looking at long-term impacts, because every decision we make is also tying even our children and our children's children. Every contribution that we make. Yes, Odhiambo.
Yes, on conflict, I think there are three things majorly that cause conflict. Number one is obviously resources. Why are Kenyans now, almost things have come to a standstill? Tomorrow is a public holiday, but today hardly anybody, very few people are even going to work. Why? Because it's such a big day. We are going to be giving people jobs tomorrow, deciding who will get a job and who will not. So the resources is a major issue. That's why in the past, I don't know, this time around, at least it's not been highlighted a lot, but there was that statement by some politicians during Moi era that it is our time to eat. So by even from such a statement, that's where that arrogance comes. Some people feel like that sense of entitlement, that in here too, and we're not going to let go. Thank God this election, this time around, we don't hear a lot of that. And then there's also, this conflict is also caused by selfishness. You find some leaders, once they're elected, they now decide to show their true colors of how selfish they are, dividing the country into parts or in the constituencies, and giving some people more benefit than the other one. And then I think the other area of conflict is this culture of marginalizing some parts of the country or some people. Those are things that cause conflict. And then finally, another major one that causes conflict is hope. Leaders give hope, but some of them give ridiculous hope. Sorry to use that word. You've had them at these political platforms. Like now, for you guys know that I went to both of them as a journalist and as a Kenyan to go and know what is happening in Nyayo Stadium, what is happening in Kasarani. You hear somebody standing up there in broad daylight, even immediately after the prayers, saying that by 8 o'clock or 10 o'clock, tutakuwa tumeshamaliza tumeshinda. How? 8 a.m. or 10 a.m. Yet the polls are closed officially at what time? 6 p.m. So they are already lying. And these are the people who we call leaders and we trust. And those are things that cause conflict because people have high expectation that tomorrow at 6 o'clock you vote, by 8 o'clock, 10 o'clock, you already know who has won. Yet that is complete lie. And though that is why those are some of the major things that I think cause conflict. Our leaders are not honest. And because of the euphoria at political rallies, people fall for it. And then also the other thing is that there's so many people who have been given handouts left, right, and center. So they are now going to be causing conflict because now they were told by their leaders, you have to be stay at the polling station until the counting ends and the results. Yet the electoral laws also are very clear that once you vote, you're supposed to clear that place so that there's unnecessary people standing there talking, and that's where it can even have conflict of even people fighting each other verbally and physically. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Part of conflict, what I've learned, and this is something I've debated for years, is the lack of reasonableness and intolerance. Conflict comes because we do not want to understand the other person's perspective. We do not want to listen to their heart, what they are saying and what they are not saying. If we can learn as a community to be sitting together and learning the perspective of each other, why do you support this? Objectively, without investing emotion and fighting. And why do you think this one is not right? Unless somebody, enough people apparently have done this discussion, will not tell you anything concrete other than so and so ni mzuri, is good, good. Now tell us what makes so and so good. And the moment we reach that level, we will be very, very logical about it. And by the way, that is the only time that presidential debates, gubernatorial debates will make sense. Because most times what I've observed is many people go there to support their candidate. It doesn't matter what they say or whether they were able to answer any question. No. We are just going to support and cheer them up. There is what we call, Dr. Eda brought it. I learned about this when people were doing the constitutional review, that people wanted the power, a lot of power, the powerful president to be moderated, so that there are checks and balances, that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And we've been able to see that if you give somebody power, you are able to know. And that is why people get scared at some point with certain candidates along the way, that what if we entrust power with this person? If we entrust power with this person? Will we be safe? And so there is, you've brought in the idea of hope. I always love to say that we need justifiable hope. It is not just baseless hope. For example, if you tell us that therefore maybe when you become president, then we will not need to work anymore. You see, work will be over. We will just be paid by the government. Then you wonder, okay, then what is this government? Where will it get the money to pay us so that we live the life that is comfortable? You see, if, for example, you promise us jobs, that we will create jobs, this is something I've always wondered. How does government create jobs for people directly? There is no way except through private sector and all that, the company just making an enabling environment so that people can thrive and do their. And I've always said that most of us Africans are very resilient. Kenyans are even more resilient. They just need an enabling environment. They don't need handouts. So we need to invest in logic, not emotions. And we need to take an upper hand in making people to come to reason and less of emotional investment. We need to help people to understand what is necessary to check and what consequence does it have. It's all a gamble most times because you cannot vouch 100% for a candidate, but at least you will be able to check from track record, from what you already know, history, from what they say, what they do, what people say about them. You will always know where would you be where would the public be safer? Where would we have development? Where would we have security? Where would we have all these other things that are necessary for the development of the people? Better education system, water. People should not be thirsty in a country or in our countries where we have the largest freshwater lake, and all sorts of things. So the question is, are we up to that task in helping people to understand what is it that we need to check for in making a decision and leading by example, you see? But if we are going to be part of the masses, then it means we are not growing. We are not becoming better leaders. We are just part of the problem, but we better be part of the solution. And I think we can close it at that point because of time. So I want to Odhiambo, your hand is still up. I'm not sure whether it's previous hand or
it's a previous hand, lower hand.
Great, yeah, thank you. So
maybe Paul Peter, just to add a word.
Yes, Susan.
Yeah, it happened that when the BBI was being started, being a member of Peace and Justice, it happened that when the forum was in Nairobi, we happened to be in the team. And I remember some politicians were there, and they said very well that our characters also determines how they lead us, because they really desire to give us the right direction. But the force of the bad character we have influences them, and they really insisted that let us also change, because at that time we were at a forum in the level of Christian. They said that we are Christian like you are Christian. You people be true Christian to help us also be our part Christians, because you desire, but the people you lead doesn't want the right thing. So in a way or the other, when we are looking also at the leaders, I am just thinking of the point, we also need to check our part of learning so that we enable them achieve what all of us want, so that we don't also push them to do the wrong thing, yet we ourselves are the people who are looking for that wrong thing that we need. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. And that is why we do all this. We need to take our role. Again, it's important to know that a leader influences. A leader is not to be necessarily influenced. He influences, and this is something I've often said. If you hear, there is a difference between a leader and a representative. A representative will do what people want. Yeah, like Aaron of the Bible. These people asked for a God. They told me that you are lost. And so I asked them, okay, you want God? Bring the gold, the ornaments that you have, place them here. And I put it in fire, and this is what came out. That is a representative, a mouthpiece, not a leader. A leader will stand up for what is right, whether it's popular or unpopular. And leadership has nothing necessarily to do with the office that somebody holds. And so in this case, we are talking about representatives. I love giving this example that sometimes in the August House, National Assemblies, you realize that some people abstain from making a decision. They walk away because they do not want to make their side known. They sit on the fence. And I think this is what brings in the element of CG watermelon. We need to be making decision. If a leader makes the right decision, it's good. If they make a wrong decision, along the way, they will realize my decision was wrong, and they will come up and say something about it. So it's good for us to know that in leadership, we do not necessarily go with the popular opinion. We go with what is in our conviction that this is the right route to go. You see, and that people will follow you along the way. They will realize that you are right, even if they thought you were wrong, because they will be able to see light through you. So that is the way it is. So to me, I don't, much as the electorate can take responsibility, but they are not the leaders. The leader who takes up that role must take the responsibility of ensuring that things are fixed, that people know what they need to know, whether they want to know it or not. That is it.
Otieno,
Thank you very much. Yes.
Actually, what Susan is saying is true, and I've seen it on the ground. A very good leader comes up, but because he's not giving, the public is demanding for money, you see? And he's not giving money because he's trying to be a person of integrity, and they end up not electing the person. So it does not even make it to leadership. So actually what she said is true. Sometimes we play
That's
around.
true. That's true. And you see, if I can corrupt you so that I become a leader, then it means I'm hiding something. And that's why I'm saying I don't have to be elected. I will still remain a leader. There is no need for me to bribe or compromise my values simply because I want to be elected. You see? And we've learned the other time I was told of this boy who was campaigning in Meru using a bicycle or a motorbike or something like that and became an MP, or was it a senator? It is possible. The question is whether these people have the strategy, what it takes, and maybe they've come up with ideas. They may need to have a think tank. They may need, in fact, there will be other people to help you achieve your cause. Most of these politicians do not have that money. Other people help them fund. So it's good for us to know that if people will make me compromise, that is really my character. It is not the people who are making me. And to me, I won't necessarily buy that. And by the way, if I've got to buy people to vote for me, I'd rather forgo that office. I can still provide my leadership from the periphery. That's my stand. I personally, I won't bribe, I won't pay somebody to vote for me if I chose to vie for an office. In fact, most times for the leadership roles that I've ever been in, I've never vied. People drag me to it. But to me, a leader will not bribe. People will vote them. And that is something that we can always carry on with the discussion. Yes, Haile Selassie.